Mars looked like it had a dense atmosphere with a nice greenhouse going. Some cataclysm, what looks like a thermonuclear holocaust, blew most of the atmosphere off into space. So it's only got a thin, tenuous atmosphere left, and it leaked all its heat full of organic matter. And
it looked like bacterial.
And it looked like bacterial
structure.
Fossils in there.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, like these other, Citadel keepers.
I know.
Rule the day.
The Mars bone is connected to the UFO bone, and the UFO bone is connected to the head bone of this government. Once you find life on Mars, then you know there's life in the stars. The second hurdle is, are we the only intelligent life in the universe? And then you find the Martian archaeology, and then you realize, no.
So who is covering this up? Who's at the top of the pyramid, so to speak?
By this point,
Yeah.
we knew we'd found a dead civilization on Mars.
Isn't one popular theory, even in, again, conventional circles, that Mars had a magnetosphere?
Yes,
and that
it did.
allowed for water to
Yes.
exist and stuff, and that its magnetosphere was somehow stripped?
Well, Mars is only half the size of Earth. It has about 1/8 the mass of Earth. What that means is its core would have cooled off quicker, and the molten core is what allows the liquid iron dynamo that generates the magnetic field on Earth to exist. So Mars may have just run out of gas, but
Okay, so the magnetosphere just died out.
it just died out.
And that wasn't, so you think they had actually extincted themselves before that or after that? They were unrelated?
I think so. I think Mars
And for the audience, the magnetosphere would allow a biosphere to exist.
Yes,
would allow water, but also possibly life.
Well, and it's, as they're finding out at Chernobyl, by the way, life can thrive in areas with a lot of radiation. It just mutates faster.
Yes.
And so accelerated evolution on Mars may have proceeded after the magnetosphere died. But there's other things going on. Mars looked like it had a dense atmosphere with a nice greenhouse going. On Mars, greenhouse effect was not a bad word. It helped Mars to have Earth-like temperatures, even though it's farther from the sun. And what happened then was suddenly all that was gone. Some cataclysm, what looks like a thermonuclear holocaust, blew most of the atmosphere off into space. So it's only got a thin, tenuous atmosphere left, and it leaked all its heat. And a planetary greenhouse traps heat. So even the core stays hotter. So it could have accelerated the decline of the magnetosphere on Mars, losing its atmosphere. And there's still areas of Mars that are still strongly magnetized, and they found aurora over them.
Due to the magnetic
Yes.
field presence.
Yes.
Wasn't there a meteorite found in Alaska as well in the 90s that Clinton then spoke about publicly?
Actually, it was found in Antarctica, and that was
Antarctica.
ALH 8401.
Uh-huh.
There's a certain type of meteorite called CI carbonaceous chondrites. They're basically old lake bottom from some planet.
And this meteorite was from Mars?
Yes.
We know
and that
it's
was a
from
piece of lava, but it had a vein of carbonate inside, limestone, and it was full of organic matter. And
it looked like bacterial
And it looked like bacterial
structure.
fossils in there.
Yeah.
I found their evidence to be rather convincing, but they were attacked viciously.
We have archaeological structures on
Yes.
Mars that seem to imply that water existed at the very least.
Oh, yes.
We have, conventional astronomers saying, there was probably a magnetosphere back in
Yes.
the day, and that would allow for a biosphere.
Yes, it would.
And then you have these artificial.
You don't even need, there could be water in the ocean, life in the oceans without even it being on land, and it would survive the radiation because the seawater stops all the radiation.
Right. And then you have artificial structures.
Yes.
And then you have Carl Sagan calling you saying, why are you making all this trouble? So seems like a decent amount of evidence that at the very least, this is worthy of further investigation. And, maybe we should move our probability from 0% life on Mars to much higher than that.
I think the data has received,
and then you have the isotopes.
Has achieved critical mass now.
And you have the isotopes, which are really like which nobody can explain, the xenon-129 and the argon-40. So this brings up another question, which is, I just interviewed Joseph McMoneagle, who's remote viewer #1 in the psychic spy program. And he was given, this is now public and declassified, he was given coordinates to remote view on Mars 1 million years in the past.
Yes.
And so you can say that, as a modality, remote viewing is imperfect. But the fact that he's being given coordinates for 1 million years ago is fascinating. Wow. And so and then I was just at his place and he's showing me all these correspondences between him and JPL people or whatever. And with these photos that they're sending him. And I'm like, are you sure this is real and you're not being duped or whatever? And he's showing me these photos of tons of artificial structures on Mars. And I'm like, he's basically implying to me that it's an open secret at Jet Propulsion Lab that there was life on Mars. And I'm like, why are they not publicly making a statement about this? And he's like, oh, well, they don't need to. And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? Neil deGrasse Tyson, these other, Citadel keepers.
I know.
Rule the day. But
the old guard of Mars.
If you were to walk into JPL and talk to a random sampled scientist there, randomly sampled scientist there. If you were to walk into JPL and you were to talk to a randomly sampled scientist there and say, hey, I think there was life on Mars, a long time ago, and they might have, extincted themselves, what would they say? Would they call you crazy and laugh you out of the room, or?
Their eyes would dart around to see if they were or anyone was listening. And then they'd say, yes, but don't tell anybody I told you so. Why
is that not some thing that humanity should just immediately know? That's just interesting and exciting. And
it's my explanation. Is it's partly due to just old-fashioned institutional politics and agendas. Jet Propulsion Lab versus, the robotic space program versus the human space program based at Houston. But it also has to do with the chilling effect on American science and global science because of the UFO cover-up. I can say the Mars bone is connected to the UFO bone, and the UFO bone is connected to the head bone of this government.
And so it would be disruptive from we are the sole authority on Earth, or disruptive from a religious perspective, and it would just kind of upset people's worldviews and mass or something.
There's a great deal to that, and that's kind of old-fashioned thinking. The public's understanding and awareness has evolved sufficiently now that if you told them there was life on Mars, they would just accept it, especially this bacterial life. And even a dead civilization on Mars is not threatening. It's not going to invade us.
We've gone so far beyond. We're saying that there are saucers and hangars at aerospace corporations and stuff. And people are getting into all this psychic stuff. There's the #1 podcast in the country for a bit was the telepathy tapes. And you're saying that people can't believe that, 1 million years in the past, there was life on Mars. If anything, we live in this multipolar world that's a complete powder keg where you have mutually assured destruction between global powers that have nuclear arsenals. It would be an amazing wake-up call.
Oh, it would be. It'd be wonderful. But at the same time, you got to realize the public needs to be brought up to speed. It's once you find life on Mars, then there's life in the stars. It's just a given. If it's here on Earth and it was on Mars and it's still on Mars, by the way, there's a remnant biosphere there, and we have very strong evidence for that. Then people know that there's life elsewhere in the cosmos. They've gotten over the first hurdle. The second hurdle is, are we the only intelligent life in the universe? And then you find the Martian archaeology, and then you realize, oh, no, we're not the only intelligent culture in the universe. There's a dead humanoid civilization. It's interesting. The faces look human. They don't look like lizard men. They don't look like praying mantises. They don't look like little gray aliens.
You think the faces are fake? Because there is a concept called pareidolia.
Sure.
Where you see a face because it's a pattern that you're used to seeing or whatever.
Yeah,
and so you're sure that face is a monument that was specifically built to resemble.
It's slightly eroded, like all archaeology. You look at pictures of the Sphinx when it was first photographed, it looks like hell.
Yeah.
They've spruced it up a lot for the tourist bureau in Egypt because it's money. You know, people want to come there and see this good face. But the thing is that there's pareidolia, and there's also another phenomenon in Egypt. It's called denial. It's called denial. Denial is not just a river in Egypt. There's what's called a reverse hallucination. Means you see a pattern there clearly, but you deny it exists because the implications of it are unacceptable.
So who is covering this up? Who's at the top of the pyramid, so to speak, no pun intended, understanding, that there is, because one more piece of evidence, you have Haim Eshed, who ran the Israeli version of Space Force. So all their, space signals, comms, I think he won some like national security award for Israel 3 times or something.
Absolutely.
He's like very well respected.
Yes, he is.
And in conventional circles. And I actually am in touch with like an understudy of his who speaks
very good.
And
the Mossad knows.
Yeah,
the Mossad, they know. It's their business to know.
I'm sure they do. And so, and hopefully, I would love for Haim to speak and for him to come out, because that would be such an amazing crossing of the Rubicon as far as his background and credentials. And he's getting older, but he says that there's a galactic federation, that there are like factions of aliens fighting each other, and that there are American astronauts working with aliens under the ground in Mars, that there's like a biosphere underground or something. Does that seem crazy to you?
I'm amazed he's saying that.